And so it's great. And so one of the things we like to do is bring you guys decision makers who can really help shape recovery efforts and what's going on. And I think we got a pretty good one coming in today, don't we, Chris?
We definitely do. We've got former U.S. House member, former U.S. State Attorney,
yeah,
and currently our Lieutenant Governor, Tim Griffin.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're glad you're here. Let me say, for all of you that may be thinking something,
just a little bit.
You know, to be in the studio, we follow a lot of guidelines.
Strict guidelines.
And to do right by those guidelines, we go the extra mile, if you will. And so we're grateful that Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin was able to come in the studio today.
Absolutely.
But we are making sure safety is number one. And so we understand what environment we are in right now. But
it's not that you didn't wear deodorant. It's just that I needed to be 6 feet away.
Exactly. And so we're serious about the pandemic, but we're grateful that Lieutenant Governor was able to come in the studio today to talk about an underlying serious issue that we can't afford to lose focus on. We have to focus on addiction and what it's doing to our community.
Way before COVID, addiction has been killing 200 Americans a day. You know, we can call it an epidemic, but reality it's a pandemic because the drugs are not just in America, they're not just in Arkansas, they're global. So it's a pandemic as well. We just don't call it that because it's a shame-based thing.
Right. But before we get any further, I want to, was it in 2019 you received the rank of colonel? Or was it actually in 2020?
Yeah, 2018.
It was 2 years ago already?
2000.
Oh, wow.
Late 18, I think I pinned on in late 18. You know, I took command in 19. And, you know, if you look at my life, one of the few constants for decades has been that Army service. And, you know, I will tell you that awareness of addiction is a very high priority in the military. You may know that we have had a lot of problems in the military with suicide.
Yeah, right.
And a lot of time, addiction, drug problems are tied into some of those same challenges and difficulties that service members have.
Yeah.
So I have seen it from that perspective. And, you know, sometimes it can be made worse for service members when they come out of the service or they came back from combat at some point overseas. And they come back to the U.S. and they get out of the service and they live here in Little Rock or somewhere else in Arkansas. Sometimes they have a hard time adjusting. They're not with that very structured military environment, right? And they're used to being with their buddies, and they have a comfort level that they've built in that world, and then they're not thrown out, but they're thrown into the civilian world. And unfortunately, sometimes one of the places that they go for relief is substance.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so it's everybody's problem.
It is.
It's all of our. It's my problem. It's your problem. Whether you have a substance problems personally, that's one thing. But it's everybody's problem.
Yeah, it affects all of us.
Well, it's a lot of the people that we all support who have ended up in prison. We pay for that in our tax dollars. A lot of that relates to substance abuse.
Yes.
And a lot of our deaths on our highways relate to substance. I mean, there's a lot of our problems in the families relate to substance abuse. So when I say it's everyone's problem, that is not just some happy talk I'm trying to get everybody engaged with. It's a reality.
It is.
It is a reality. So I appreciate y'all letting me come on here.
Yeah, no, we appreciate your service. First and foremost, we love service members and supporting them. Actually, one of our most memorable guests was a guy named Michael Brooks.
Founder of We Are the 22.
We Are the 22, and this is graphic, but he committed suicide. Didn't try. He committed suicide. He put a big.
What the lieutenant governor just said was he tried
PTSD probably, or maybe.
Yeah, he found an abandoned house, and it was in the winter, and he took some heroin, and it didn't kill him. But when he woke up, he was frozen to the floor, and at that moment, he said God kind of entered his life and kind of changed his trajectory. And he said, in that moment, I wish someone would have kicked down that door and saved my life. And that's what he does now. And they go out and they meet in real time, service members who are struggling.
Well, the disease does not discriminate between color, income, neighborhood, whatever. People with more money may have more access, but make no mistake about it. It is an equal opportunity killer.
Yes, it is.
And sometimes it is deceptive in how it sneaks in through prescription meds, through medical struggles, and you're going down a route to healing, and you may become an addict and become dependent upon substance in that way, or some other way on the street. But there are so many different ways that people are impacted by this. I know you and I have talked about this, but my brother struggled with opioids, and it was because of a back surgery in his 50s. A back surgery gone bad. And the doctor at the time, who's no longer in Arkansas.
You know what year that was?
It was probably about 6-7 years ago.
Yeah,
maybe 8 years ago.
True to the research and the statistics.
So he had back surgery. It didn't go well, and the doctor, instead of providing a number of different solutions to the pain, just said, here's some opioids. Probably didn't do it in that way. He just said, I'm prescribing this.
Yeah.
And my brother texts me a lot and sort of updates me on things. And it was clear to me what was happening is he was losing his quality of life. He was combining it with alcohol, anything to stop the pain. Yeah. He would tell me that even though he's had back surgery, say my foot feels like 1,000 hornets are stinging it, right? And so he would mix alcohol with the opioids, and I could tell that his health was degenerating, and he was no longer able to go hunting, to go in the woods, which he likes to do. It was limiting his activity.
Then you get emotional pain on top of that.
Yeah, and then, it's just a snowball.
Yeah.
And I basically saw someone in his 50s who was headed to death, toward death. And so I reached out to a doctor here in town, and a pain management doctor who's widely respected, regarded, highly regarded. And I said, look, my brother's got pain. He's been just given a singular solution by this other doctor, opioids.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's probably overprescribed.
Yeah.
He wasn't following the FDA's guidelines on how long
I don't even
the treatment
know
should
if
last.
he knew a lot about pain management. He was a neurosurgeon.
Yeah, doctors don't go.
And he just pushed a lot of opioids toward my brother in different shapes and sizes, I think. And but the pain I said to the pain management doctor, is there not a way to deal with pain in a responsible way that will allow him to maintain his health and quality of life, and we can help getting him off of, pulling him, hopefully solving some of this addiction. My brother has sort of this personality, where he had always had a lot of alcohol, and addictive personality, I guess, is what some would say, or a tendency toward maybe addiction. And this doctor helped us by prescribing a number of different prescriptions. At the high end of the pain scale, there were limited opioids if needed, very limited. But there were a number of other options before you had to get there that would deal with most pain on most days. And that transformed, literally, has transformed my brother's life, allowing him to travel, have quality of life. And so that is just one example of someone who did not go seeking thrills or seeking
recreational drugs.
Yeah, or he wasn't seeking to hide from.
It should be
problem.
the leading example,
Right.
because
it was a pain that he was
right.
trying to deal with.
It's legitimate chronic pain.
Yeah.
And Jimmy and I talk about this a lot, and you're definitely aware of it, that, you know, the opioid epidemic scares doctors, and then they start cutting their patients off on the supply that they've been giving them. And a lot of these individuals have legitimate chronic pain. And I think that story is important to share with all of our viewers, because there are alternatives to pain. Is it scary? Yes. But, you know, we're trusting in the process. And you all just heard it, that, you know, the quality of life has been completely transformed and enriched through just a little more options, more solutions.
Well, and there's been a lot more
solution-oriented thinking.
There has been a lot more awareness, obviously, a lot more education in the last 5 to 10 years, particularly probably in the last 5 years on this issue. But the moral of the story is there is help. There is help, and you know, I would say that faith in this instance, my brother's faith in the Lord has been a big part of that solution as well. I will also say, so that's one perspective that I bring when I'm thinking about substance abuse and recovery and addiction. Another one relates to my service on the board of Our House, which is a home for the working homeless, and also on the board of Pathway to Freedom.
Really?
So yeah, I've been on the board of Our House for
now Jimmy's engaged
for years, yeah. and then so Our House is, I've been on the board there for about 6 or so years, I guess, and then Pathway to Freedom just a few years. So on the Our House side of things, a lot of the people who are homeless are either dealing with substance abuse in the home in a spouse, or they have their own substance abuse problem that is tied to domestic violence, or that is tied to job loss, or that is tied to something that has led them to this place. And again, as we know, can affect anybody, any background, right? And so I've seen a lot of the consequences, and I've also seen the wonderful stuff that they're doing there. And then Pathway to Freedom is a faith-based prison ministry.
Very reputable.
And what I appreciate that. You know, we had Darryl Strawberry come, the Hall of Fame baseball player, come and talk about his struggles. We are at Pathway to Freedom. It's faith-based. And it is a program that we run independently, independent from the prison. We lease out some space at Wrightsville. But the bottom line is, a lot of people who end up in prison have their activity, their conduct that led them there, related in some way to substance abuse.
Absolutely.
And if we are going to have these people who, but for the grace of God goes me, right? If we're going to have them come back out in society and get jobs and be productive, and as I say to them when I go down to the Wrightsville prison, not just survive, we want them to thrive. We want them to flourish. We want them to prosper. If we want that to happen, we've got to make sure we're dealing with the substance abuse part, because we don't want them falling back into that. Because that will almost ensure recidivism, that they end up back in prison, right? It will almost ensure that they're unemployable. It will almost ensure that they fall into some of the social problems.
It continues
that they have
vicious
before.
cycle.
Got to deal with this disease, and so it's. I also approach the recovery and addiction issue with the pathway to freedom in mind. And let me just tell you, when I talk to those folks in prison at Wrightsville, there are so many of them who are so talented, so gifted, whether they have formal education or not. I went down there and helped lead a worship service, and the musicians on the guitar, etc., incredible, right?
Yeah.
I talked to one guy who was a computer whiz in the Air Force in Jacksonville. He's in prison now. These are people that we need to get out and have them row in the same direction.
Yeah.
Be on the team, because here's the deal. I can assure you this, they're going to get out and they're going to be your neighbor. And we want them productive.
Absolutely.
We want them doing their very best and thriving. And so dealing with this addiction disease is so important. One quick story. So when we had the Darryl Strawberry event, we had it over at the Travelers Field baseball park at Dickey Stevens, and we had a guest that night, and it was one of our Pathway to Freedom graduates, if you will, who had been in prison.
Right, absolutely.
And he now is a top-selling contemporary Christian artist, and he just recorded in Nashville like a top 10 contemporary Christian song. But addiction was part of his problem.
Yeah.
If you can deal with this, people can lead completely different lives.
Yeah,
So,
Jimmy beat the statistics.
Yeah, so I got to tell you, you're talking my lingo, and I feel like you're talking.
I'm preaching to the choir.
Right.
No,
yeah.
no,
And
like,
so if if
in
you watch the
his head.
show, if you follow my social media pages, I did 5 years at Wrightsville.
Okay, I did not know that.
And so
Was Pathway there when you were there?
It was just getting started.
Yeah.
But a lot of the men that I did time there with, they minister full churches. They're successful.
Yeah.
And in 2015, Governor Hutchinson signed off on me to be the first parolee to hold a state position as the recovery manager for Arkansas on parole.
Gotcha.
And so that's the type of reentry and recovery efforts that we see in Arkansas.
Yeah.
Under that type of leadership that broke the stigma.
Yeah.
Now here's the deal. Exactly what the Lieutenant Governor is saying is absolutely true. What's the difference between Jimmy McGill and anybody else that came home?
Yeah.
There's only one. I had unlimited resources opened up for me. There's absolutely nothing special about me.
Mm-hmm.
I had a desire to get clean. I came home to new people, new places, and new things, and all of a sudden we started changing history. And currently, Arkansas is the national leader in recovery efforts.
Amen.
We've assisted 16 different states in building infrastructure and all kinds of things. But our peer recovery movement, our treatment providers we're killing it.
You hit on something, and I tell the folks at Wrightsville this, they already know it. All of us are one decision away from ending up at Wrightsville, ending up in a bad situation, struggling with substance, whatever. So I tell people there's a whole bunch of reasons that we got to help folks in prison deal with substance abuse and get them ready to roll when they get out. Because number one, they're getting out. But here are the reasons why we got to do it. First of all, they're humans.
Yeah, that's right.
And we're commanded to love them and meet them where they are with their need.
That's right.
Number one. And number two, if that doesn't appeal to you, they're going to be coming to a neighborhood near you.
Absolutely.
They may be visiting it, or they may be living in it.
15,000 a year get released.
But we want people. Look, we have technical jobs in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math jobs that we can't get enough workers for. Mm-hmm. That computer guy that I met that used to be in the Air Force down at Wrightsville, I don't know if he's out now or not. We need him working.
Yeah,
we need him bringing his skills. We need people contributing in society, whatever way they can. I believe God gives everybody a gift.
Right. We
need people using that gift, whatever that gift is. It may involve going to technical school. It may involve apprenticeship. It may involve college, whatever. There's something for everybody. So we need them doing that. And as I like to say, as I said before, we don't need them just getting by.
That's right.
Just surviving. Because surviving and being right there on the edge of surviving and not surviving, that's where they're very vulnerable to substance abuse. We need them thriving.
That's right.
We need them.
That'd be a great title for a book, Surviving to Thriving.
I love that. Yeah. Don't steal it.
There you go.
There
There you go. Easy now. Trademark.
You better
Trademark.
So if any of our viewers has any questions for Lieutenant Governor Griffin,
type 'em
please
in.
put them in there, and we may actually ask him.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, we might.
You
So
are getting
put some compelling
technologically fancy
Yeah.
here.
We'll be able to interact a little bit. So why don't we talk about drug courts?
Yeah.
And,
Love it.
You know,
the
right
first
now
thing we did when Kirk Lane and Cindy Gillespie hired me, the first thing we did was started building out our drug courts and our jail programs, focusing on treating the problem.
So I'm a big advocate for drug courts where you can divert folks who have gotten into some kind of trouble. You can divert them away from the traditional prison route, and you can deal with them on substance issues in particular so that they never get in the prison system. Because a lot of folks, they'll screw up and they'll end up in trouble, and it'll be directly in some way related to substance and substance abuse. And if we can address that and keep them from ever going into prison, I'm talking about nonviolent folks, obviously, then they can get their lives back on track and not be influenced in the negative way that people are when they have to spend time in prison. They are more likely to deal with their struggle and stay on the right track, stay on the right track, if we can keep them out of prison, assuming that they meet the certain standards. I can tell you that, we have drug courts around the state. We need more.
Yeah, we do.
We need more awareness of the issue and the success. I will tell you, I've spoken at drug court graduations where folks have gone through the program. Bentonville's got a really good one. Been up there to speak.
Talk about structure. I mean, it's an accomplishment.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you take the time to go do that, because it says
well,
something when someone actually gets through.
Well, the testimonies speak for themselves. You hear a lot of young people.
A lot of people get clean with the judge nudge.
Yeah. Well, and with that recognition that there's an underlying problem of addiction or substance abuse that got them off track.
Yeah.
And again, it's in everybody's interest that we have these people making money, not taking, working, thriving.
Right.
So even if none of this appeals to your heartstrings, it's in your fiscal, financial, taxpayer interest that we get these folks back in our society working and being productive.
Tugged on someone's heartstrings.
Well, look, I'll tell you, what'll really move you if you go to one of these drug court graduations, and you'll hear somebody get up and say, these are all the bad things I had happening in my life. And this is where I am today. And it's not a shade, it's usually not a shade improvement. It's vast. It's like, I was unemployed, now I have a job. I was addicted, now I'm clean. I had a broken marriage, now I have peace in the home.
And they're probably there supporting.
Right.
Like that.
Right.
They're actually
right,
there.
Right. I was stressed all the time, trying to figure out how I was going to survive. Now each day is a blessing, right? The contrast is incredible.
Yeah, it really is.
And look, I'll just tell you from my perspective, the most powerful stories are the ones where people's hearts have been changed by the Lord, and that's just a fact. And but the bottom line of what you're doing and all of what we're talking about is, regardless of your reason, it's in everybody's interest, mine, yours, the gentleman sitting over there, the gentleman sitting way over here. It's in everybody's interest, that we help folks get themselves right and clean. Right. Because we would never say, oh, those people with broken legs and cancer and whatever. Just leave them alone. Don't worry about them. We would never say that.
Yeah.
This is something. This is a condition that needs to be dealt with.
Yeah.
And
81,000 Americans overdosed last year.
Oh man.
Just from just opioid related.
Yeah.
Well,
we have 2 a day
most
in
of them are
Arkansans that lose
Yeah.
their life. Well, that number's way higher now.
over 88, like you mentioned. If it's not the contributor, alcohol is a lot of, even marijuana is a supporting actor.
Yeah.
In some of these.
And don't believe that this is something that just happens in a certain part of town.
Absolutely.
There are kids at our universities here in this state and all over the country who are trying that drug, that supposedly opioid. You never know if it's got fentanyl from China or whatever, because a lot of that stuff's made in China, trafficked up through Mexico. You never know what you're trying. And these college kids who have bright futures, or whatever, it can affect anybody. I know for a fact. I have a friend whose son used to work on my campaigns, and he was a fraternity member up at the University of Arkansas. And one time he tried, and he got addicted, and he's no longer with us. And it's just a tragedy. It's a tragedy. So, parents, don't kid yourself. It can happen in any neighborhood.
Yeah, you're in denial if you think that you're...
It is really, drugs and substance abuse is as much a problem on college campuses as it is anywhere else.
That's why we started the Save Our Students Coalition.
Mm-hmm.
Trevor Belines was over it for a long time.
Yes, that's where I met Trevor up at the university.
Yeah, dang it.
I went up for I went up for a press. Yeah, I went up for a press conference. Trevor was, I think, in student government or something at the University of Arkansas. Yeah. They invited me up to speak on this issue, and I went up for that event. I remember doing the press conference up there, and that was probably maybe 3 or 4 years ago. But that's where I think that's where I first met Trevor. There are a lot of different things going on to help address this problem, but it's not a one and done thing. It's not like we got a program for that, we're done. Right. No, this is like raising your kids. Yeah. It's every single day, sun up to sundown. Yeah. It doesn't end. Yeah. Even when they get out of the house, it doesn't end. I wouldn't know that. All 3 of mine are young, but
that's the bad thing about life. It's so daily.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we
you can't hit pause, huh? That's also the great opportunity about life, right? I mean, look, the alternative's not a good one. I thank the Lord for every day, even though days don't always go my way. So much to be thankful for.
Well, we appreciate you coming in and spending some time with us out of your busy schedule. We always give our guests the final word, final thought.
I'm just going
to
address
our viewers. If you want to say,
just going to say thanks for what y'all do. Thanks for what everybody does who's in your line of work. It is all hands on deck. Yeah. I will tell you that there is a role for government to play, but government does not have a magic wand here. This is something that nonprofits play a critical role. Faith-based community plays a critical role. And on a lot of these things, government has the money, but a lot of these nonprofits can do a better job. They're just more nimble, they're more efficient, and they've got expertise that, frankly, government doesn't always have. So there's a role for government to play, but government, you can't rest because you think government's got a program for this. Government's got a program for a lot of stuff that's never been fixed. So this is an all hands on deck deal.
It is.
And we got to keep rowing. Stop rowing, the boat stops. Remember that.
I want to say something, Lieutenant Governor. I'm really impressed with your understanding of all these core issues surrounding addiction, especially the correlation between substance use and recidivism. Right, like Arkansas's recidivism rate is extreme, and I never met anyone doing time that wasn't there for any other thing other than a substance use issue, whether it was drug dealing, whether it was a crime committed while they were using, because the simple truth is non-substance users that are incarcerated don't tend to make the same mistake twice because they can think a little bit better than one with a clouded mind.
Yeah.
And we can back all that up with data.
Yeah.
And so that's really
well,
cool.
I appreciate that. Two quick things. Pathway to Freedom graduates have a much lower recidivism rate because they're being transformed. And I think that's very important to point out. Yeah. And so, but anyway, I appreciate what y'all do, and we just got to keep the focus on.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you coming. Is there a website someone can go to?
Of course, if anybody wants to contact me in my official office, 501-682-2144. I think I got that right. I usually call a direct line, but really appreciate y'all having me.
Wonderful. Well, we'll meet you again around the campfire when the time presents.
Campfire cologne, that's when you're roasting marshmallows and you smell like
Arkansas back maybe next time, that'll give out and spray on. Maybe next time we can talk about the tie-in of illiteracy.
That's good.
One of our biggest emergencies in the state is illiteracy, and we don't hear enough about it. Illiteracy can predict substance abuse, folks that go to prison, etc.
Yeah.
It's a critical deal, and we need more attention paid to it.
That's great.
We appreciate you.
Thank
you
y'all
so much.